We're about to unpack a question that's right at the heart of India's entire education system. And it's a big one, because it affects every student, every family, really the future of the country. I mean, think about it. If we want great students, we've got to have great teachers first, right? So, who teaches the teachers?
Okay, I want you to think for a second about the best teacher you ever had. Seriously, the one who didn't just teach you, math or history, but actually changed the way you saw the world. We've all had someone like that, right? We all know just how powerful a truly great teacher can be. So if we all agree on that they're absolutely crucial, it leads to a much bigger question. Who is actually responsible for creating these amazing teachers? Because it's not magic, right? They don't just appear. There's this huge, complex system working behind the scenes. And today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see exactly how it all works.
All right, so to really get a grip on the system we have today, we've got to hop in a time machine and go back a bit. This whole thing wasn't just invented overnight. Nope, it was carefully pieced together bit by bit over decades, built on the foundations laid by just a handful of really influential national commissions. So starting right after independence and rolling on for decades, these key commissions, they were basically the architects of the whole modern system. You can see it here. From 53 all the way to 86, each new policy was built on top of the last one. And together, they created this single, unified national framework for how we educate our teachers. This is the bedrock we're still standing on today. So what did that foundation actually build? Good question. Well, at its very core, it created a system with two main paths, two fundamental tracks for every single educator. And this split between what's called pre-service and in-service education, honestly, it's probably the most important thing you need to grasp to understand how this whole puzzle fits together. Okay, but first, let's make sure we're all on the same page with the lingo. When we say teacher education, we're not just talking about, a single course you take in college. We mean the entire ecosystem of programs. We're talking certificates, diplomas, degrees, the whole shebang. All of it is designed with just one goal in mind, to prepare someone to be a professional teacher. And here is that crucial distinction I mentioned. Pre-service, think of that as everything you learn before you ever step foot in a classroom as the main teacher. It's your training wheels. In-service, on the other hand, is for the teachers who are already in the trenches, already working. It's the continuous professional development that helps them stay sharp and adapt throughout their whole career. Okay, so we've got the history, we've got the two main tracks. Now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty, the institutions themselves. I mean, who is actually doing all this training? Well, it turns out it's a huge, complex network that's spread all across the country. And this is where it gets really interesting. We went straight to the source material for this explainer, and what you're seeing here is the actual list it gives. Just take a second to look at that. 14 different types of institutions. It's a lot, right? I mean, at first glance, that's pretty overwhelming. So where do you even begin to make sense of all this? Well, here's the key. Don't look at it as just one long, confusing list. Instead, think of it as a system with different layers. It turns out we can sort all 14 of those institutions into just 4 logical groups based on what they actually do. So let's start right at the top. Group number 1 is what we can call the apex bodies. This is the command center. At the very top, you've got the NCRT for the entire nation, and then under that, the SCRTs for each individual state. You can really think of them as the brains of the whole operation. They're the ones doing the research, developing the curriculum and textbooks, and setting the quality standards that everyone else has to follow. Okay, so once we step down a level from the national and state headquarters, we get to our second group, the district and regional powerhouses. This includes places like DIETs, which bring all that training right down to the district level, and also more specialized places like Institutes of Advanced Study. These are the guys who take that big national vision and translate it into practical, on-the-ground training for teachers in their specific regions. Our third group is all about getting specific. This is the foundational and specialized training. This is where you find the institutions that prepare teachers for very particular jobs, like teaching in pre-primary or primary schools, or working with students who have special needs, or even becoming an expert in a subject like English. And finally, our fourth group. This one kind of covers 2 crucial but very different areas: the very top of the academic ladder and the most flexible ways of learning.
So on one hand, you've got academic staff colleges, which are for training university-level teachers. And then on the other, you've got things like open universities and correspondence institutes. These are so important for providing that in-service training we talked about, letting working teachers keep learning on their own schedule.
Okay, deep breath. That was a lot of acronyms and institutions, I know. We've looked at the history, we've broken down this really complex structure, but now we have to ask the biggest, most important question of all. Why? Why go to all this trouble? Why build such an elaborate, multi-layered system? What is this all for?
Well, it really all boils down to one simple thing. Every single one of those 14 institutions we just talked about, from the huge national NCRT all the way down to the smallest local training school, each one is just a gear and a massive machine. And that machine, it has one single purpose: to promote and improve the quality of teacher education across the entire country.
So, we've seen it. The system is vast, it's highly structured, it's complex. But that leaves us with one last, really crucial question to think about. How does this enormous institutional framework actually translate into what really matters? How does it make sure that every single student in every classroom gets to be guided and inspired by one of those truly great teachers we talked about at the beginning? Because at the end of the day, that's the real measure of success.